It's the DU General, Money D. I'ma put you up on the schedule. 6 to 9, 8 weekdays, not 2 and 7. We got a lot to talk about, so much to cut and through. Unapologetically progressive. Tune to KBLA 1580 to get the mess. When your ancestors favorite radio station. First back on talk radio on that side of the nation. Me and Dominic the Pima go way back. Time to start making sure the station stays black. Discussing all the issues in our community. With most of black and brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it. Maybe we can improve it. Digital underground, always down with the movie. So we tune in. The first things first with the cleaner. Black Talk Radio, Dominic the Pima. Go sis. KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominic the Pima. The show is First Things First. My first thing every day, giving thanks, giving praises, asking for blessings from the Most High, asking for the blessings of the ancestors, the elders, the community, and let's go. It is a Talking Point Tuesday. You know what we do. We got a lot to debunk, a lot to unpack, a lot to raise up. That's what we do around here. You're invited in every hour, 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. I roll out that red, black, and green carpet, and you are welcome in via phone. Also via social media. We're on all of them, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at KBLA 1580. I am streaming right now, looking sleepy in my amber, at KBLA 1580 on YouTube. Yes, I'll be here every day. Tabs too. All of us really. All weekday long. We're streaming on YouTube. So we do have a jam-packed, more packed than usual show today. Hour 2, we typically, freestyle phones and whatnot. Today we'll be speaking with a conservative commentator who has quite a bit to say about the president, the vice president, I should say. The vice president, probably the president too, but in particular a black Republican with a lot to say about Madam Vice President. His name's Horace Cooper. And then in the final hour, we're going to be looking at the issue of polyamory with one of the stars of the show called Seeking Brother Husband, talking about her, multiple loves and how that works for folks that are living that way. And I will welcome your questions, comments, and conversation every step of the way. Starting out the day, not solo as I sometimes do on a Talking Point Tuesday, but with some colleagues, friends joining us. Starting out with professor, former chair of the Pan-African Studies Department at Cal State LA. She is the director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots and the co-founder and lead organizer for BLMLA, among many other jobs, including Mama. Dr. Melina Abdullah, good morning.
Good morning, Dominique.
And I think joining us shortly we'll have Chris Anderson, who is the brother of Keenan Anderson. Keenan Anderson would have been 32 today, I believe.
Yes, he would have been 32 today, and his family asked that we honor him today, remember him today. And I know that they're in deep grief, as is his school and his students and many of his community members. So we say his name, Keenan Anderson, and we don't forget him, we remember him.
Yeah, so for folks that, I doubt very many people have forgotten, because it seems like it was, it was recent, but also the death of Keenan Anderson, that his life was stolen by LAPD, is one that really touched a lot of people, especially here on the left coast.
Yeah, we want to remind everybody that Keenan Anderson was a young teacher, 31-year-old teacher in West Washington, D.C., who had just moved, actually, from Los Angeles to D.C. He'd been a teacher here, and then he moved to D.C. to continue his teaching career. He had gotten into a car accident, and the video that we've seen shows him running down the street around Venice and Lincoln, asking police to help him, actually stopping a motorcycle cop and asking for help after a car accident. And instead, he was placed, basically detained on a corner where he became more and more agitated, and then ran into the middle of the intersection. The police saw him.
Killing that they don't even consider a killing. So when if you actually look at LAPD records, they self-report on killings, and they, instead of calling this a killing, which we all witness, they call it an in-custody death. But we know that they stole the life of this brilliant young black man who was engaged to be married, who was a model for his family. When Chris joins, he'll talk about how Keenan, as his older brother, modeled for him why it was so important to get a college education, to go on. Keenan went on and got a master's degree, and encouraged Chris to go on and get his college degree and pursue graduate studies. And he was everything that we ask our black men to be. And of course, you know, at 31, he wasn't a perfect person, but he was pretty close. And it's a huge loss for the world that they stole Keenan's life.
Yeah, I want to reflect on that. I want to kind of get an update on where we are now. We'll hear from Chris, and you're welcome to join if you have a question, comment, or conversation. Certainly, it highlights the issue in the current Sheriff LA County Sheriff's budget, where Sheriff Luna is asking specifically for money for more tasers. And even though that Keenan Anderson's death was at the hands of LAPD, we know that he was basically tasered to death. So we'll look at that and how that is landing when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominic DePrimo when we come forward.
The pandemic may be over, but many Angelinos could be at risk of losing the place they call home. It's important to know your rights as a residential renter in the city of LA. Did you know eviction protection still exists for unpaid COVID-19 rental debt that was due before March 31st, 2023? And that you have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice, also known as an unlawful detainer. Learn more about your rental rights at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
Don't care what you're doing, but your pads should. Get Always Triple Protection System in Always Day and Night Pads. Always Day Pads protect when active by wicking away gushes 2 times faster than leading store brands and giving us up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort. When we size up our pad at night, we get the same triple protection, plus up to 75% more coverage in the back for when we're laying down. No matter what, Always has you covered, day and night.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Are your investments going nowhere? Here's a tip that always pays big dividends. Invest in yourself, your talent, your smarts, your skills. Maybe it's time to make that investment and start a career in IT or upskill to boost your current career. At My Computer Career, you can bank on us. We'll help you get the right skills and the right certifications to start or advance your IT career. IT keeps growing, so go with the growth at My Computer Career. The right training, the right timing, the right career. Invest in you at mycomputercareer.edu. Start now.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station,
and
your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominic DePrima right now.
Right now. So the death of Keenan Anderson is what we're talking about because today is actually his heavenly birthday. He would have been 32 years old. And so many issues come up around this. One of the things we've been talking about, Dr. Melina Abdullah, is the new sheriff's budget request because the LA County Board of Supervisors is putting together their budget. They got to approve it. And Luna is asking for, I can't remember the exact amount, although I have it somewhere here, millions more for tasers, specifically for tasers. And it did make me think of Keenan Anderson. What was your response when you saw that?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about what they call less lethal weaponry, it doesn't mean non-lethal. And so when we think about murders like Keenan Anderson's murder, we really need to focus on providing more resources for our community rather than more police. We don't need more tasers. We don't need more cops on the street. You know, crime is actually down. What we need is resources. And so tasers don't guarantee that, lives will not be stolen, right? As we see with the murder of Keenan Anderson, they used those tasers many, many times. They tased Keenan many, many times until his heart stopped working. And so regardless of what the tool is, we know that police use those tools to steal life. What we need is resources that protect life. I believe that the budget proposal proposed by the LA County Sheriffs is the highest LA County Sheriff's budget, would be the highest LA County Sheriff's budget on record. And again, we're at a time when crime is down, but when Angelenos acknowledge that what we need is resources for mental health, resources for housing, resources. If there's a traffic stop, there's no need for there to be police at that traffic stop. So, we really need to invest in the resources that communities need, and that's at both the city and county level.
It sounds counterintuitive because we always hear people say when folks are shot to death by law enforcement, why didn't they taser them or why didn't they use non-lethal force to get them, to subdue them? So in that, if you look at it that way, it seems like, okay, well, maybe they should have more tasers, because perhaps fewer people would get murdered by police. Then I think about Kim Potter and I think about Keenan Anderson, apparently they tased him to death. So it kind of undermines that argument, I guess.
Right. So Kim Potter, who claims that, what did she say? She thought she was reaching for her taser when she killed Dante Wright at a traffic stop. Oscar Grant, that's the same excuse that Johannes Messerly used, that he thought he was reaching for his taser when he shot Oscar Grant to death on a BART platform that we all saw and portrayed in the film Fruitvale Station. So we know that no matter what police have, they use it as a weapon. And, we can also think about the other deaths that occur at their very hands, right? When we think about George Floyd not being shot to death, but having a knee ground into his neck. So again, that's why we continue to advocate for resources for our community. As Dr. David Turner from UCLA often says, the safest communities are the ones with the most resources, not the most police.
Yeah, you're right. The LA County CEO, Feisha Davenport, had allocated $4 billion for the Sheriff's Department for the 2023-24. And then it already had a $135 million increase over the prior year. And on top of that, $6.6 million to start this Office of Constitutional Policing, which is supposed to be getting rid of deputy gangs. And on top of that, he wants another increase. So that would be quite a big bump for the Sheriff's Department if he gets what he's asking for from the Board of Supervisors.
That's right. But we have time to intervene. So that's the point also, right, is at both the city and county, now time is running low, time is running short, but we need to intervene and say, in the name of Keenan Anderson, today should have been his 32nd birthday, in the name of Keenan Anderson, we don't want more money for more tasers. We don't want more money for more sheriffs. We want money for the things that actually keep our communities safe, and that's at both the city and county level.
And where are we with, any accountability on behalf of the LAPD regarding Keenan Anderson? I know that the family sued for $50 million, I think. But where is there criminal accountability? Where are we with any kind of legal action or even sanction? I laugh because I know that's highly unlikely by the LAPD.
Right. So we're continuing to pressure. If you remember, Keenan was killed on January 3rd. And the immediate call after Keenan was killed was for Mayor Bass not to reappoint LAPD Chief Michael Moore. And we're continuing to call for his removal. Unfortunately, she did reappoint him. One of the reasons we were making that particular call in Keenan Anderson's murder is because what Michael Moore did is what he does in almost every police killing. And I want the audience to know that LAPD so far has killed 8 people this year, which they're set to outpace every record, right? So 8 people have been killed at the hands of LAPD, and that's what we know, right? 8 people have been killed at the hands of LAPD, and it's only May. What Michael Moore has always done during his tenure is after the bodies of people are stolen, he then does whatever he can to assassinate their characters. So rather than saying, this is terrible, Keenan was a teacher, kind of take some accountability. What he attempted to do is drag Keenan's character and, release toxicology reports that may or may not be true, really condemn him rather than uplift him. And so what we saw is Michael Moore really indicate that the police department has no intention of firing or sanctioning the officers who stole the life of Keenan Anderson. So we're continuing to pressure, and also in Keenan's name, we're pushing for policy reform that would pull police out of traffic stops. Los Angeles is set to be one of the first cities if this motion that was put forward by Marquise Harris Dawson and former city council member Mike Bonin gains steam. LA would be one of the first cities to remove police from traffic collisions, which are, nonviolent traffic collisions. And so if we move that forward, that's one of the only routes that we see for justice in the name of Keenan Anderson. It would leave a legacy that really makes our communities safer. And so then the other route is the route that you mentioned, which is the civil suit that is moving forward. But we're not hopeful that either the DA or the LAPD will actually fire or discipline or prosecute the murderers of Keenan Anderson.
I think that the issue of traffic stops, cops and traffic stops, is one of many that this particular really sad story. I mean, it's just a sad story because the lawsuit for the family is on behalf of his child, who is like 5 or something.
That's right. He's the father of a 5-year-old child. He was very active in his child's life. Again, he was engaged. He was a young man, right? So he was engaged to be married. I think his fiance's name is actually Dominique as well.
Yeah, I met her at the protest down at the site where he was killed. And yeah, I mean, what a big loving family, right? They were out. They've been out protesting and marching on his behalf. You know, rolling kind of deep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, sometimes I wish we could imagine, like, what would have happened if he lived. Like, if he lived, his fiancée, Dominique, was at Howard Law School, right? He's this teacher who was deeply invested in nurturing and building, and we think about the lack of black male teachers, right? What they had to contribute to the world. It's a harm for the world, and I'm finding myself becoming emotional thinking about it. Like, when they steal the lives of people like Keenan Anderson, it is like the heart loss that I think about for his child is overwhelming, but it's also a loss for his huge family where he was, again, the model. And it's a loss for all of those kids who looked up to this black man who was a teacher in their classroom and what he would have been, what he would have undeniably been for the world.
Yeah, that's the maybe part of this whole epidemic of police killings that we don't really talk about is what we're losing, what we'll never get back, not just from our communities, but from the whole world, in terms of human capital, human beings. And this is the thing, you know, I don't know if we've talked about this before, because we talk about so many different things when you're on the show, Dr. Abdullah, but one of the things that's really hit me when you talk about, you know, hitting in the heart space is how families who have loved ones killed by police or so-called in custody deaths do not get notified of their child's death, and then don't get notified about anything regarding the investigation or what happened. Like they get nothing. And I think about what that does to not just the mom and dad, but all of the siblings, right? Cousins. Like it's always a little community of people. I remember, you know, with Ezell Ford, how there was no counseling, no notification, and yet we always hear this rhetoric about how law enforcement is trying to build trust with communities. And if build trust with communities means force kids to go on a field trip that they didn't sign up for, you know, and be lectured by the chief, but not offer any counseling support or even information to the families of people where you've actually killed someone, that I don't see how there's any actual earnest and sincere effort to so-called build trust.
That's right. In Keenan's murder, it took them 3 days to notify the family. We also know that there was no information given, and it wasn't until they learned that Keenan Anderson was the cousin of Black Lives Matter co-founder Patrisse Cullors that they began to go, oh, we better straighten up and fly right and walk them through this video and give them some information. But if Keenan hadn't have been Patrisse's cousin, I doubt they would have provided any information. Again, it took them 3 days. And then I think about, you know, the death of Waukesha Wilson took them almost 4 days. If police want to build trust, they can stop killing our people. If police want to build trust, they can stop abusing our people. And then you want to build trust, then you got to do what you say you're going to do. And I don't think that that's what they're here for. And so trust is earned. And kidnapping kids, and just so people remember what you're talking about, at Dorsey High School, they forced these kids, it was throughout LAUSD, forced these kids to go on a so-called field trip. I think they were trying to reenact Selma. It was for King Day, wasn't it? And
yeah,
brought
I think so. Yeah.
And put them through a simulator. The kids were traumatized. This isn't building trust. And so stealing lives of teachers is definitely not how you build trust.
We got news, traffic, and sports, and then more. If you're invited in, if you have a question or commentary, as always, 800-920-1580. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Former President Trump is expressing validation after a report says the FBI never should have launched the Trump-Russia probe during the 2016 election. DOJ Special Counsel John Durham's report says the FBI rushed to investigate Trump and ignored evidence that would have exonerated him. In response, Trump told Fox Digital that former FBI Director James Comey and Democrats need to be held accountable. In Illinois, Cook County Commissioner, African-American Brandon Johnson is now Chicago's 57th mayor. The new leader says he looks forward to working with all levels of government to form a stronger city. Johnson acknowledged many of the challenges ahead during his speech, including public safety, poverty, and city finances. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
If you're a late-night snacker, listen up. Buffalo Wild Wings created a menu of late-night food and drinks starting at $4, 10 till close, full of tasty apps and ice-cold beer to wash it all down. Limited time at participating locations. Offers, days, and times may vary. Drink responsibly. Void where prohibited. Tax and fees extra.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Denver Nuggets are 6-point favorites over the Lakers in Game 1 tonight of the Western Conference Finals. The Lakers, the number 7 seed, are one of only 4 teams in NBA history to reach the conference finals after being 8 games under 500. 5:30 tip-off today on ESPN. Vice President Kamala Harris spent most of her workday Monday wearing a purple and gold Lakers jersey. She lost a bet with her husband, Doug, a longtime Lakers fan. Harris grew up in Oakland and has been a lifelong Warriors fan. The Dodgers extended their winning streak to 6. They got a bases-loaded walk in the 12th inning to beat Minnesota last night. The Dodgers are 27-15. They now have the second-best record in the majors behind Tampa Bay at 31-11. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America.
The story of Emmett Till and his mother is a story of a family's promise and loss and a nation's reckoning with hate, violence, and abuse of power. It's a story that was seared into our memory and our conscience, the nation's conscience, when Mrs. Till insisted that an open casket for her murdered and maimed 14-year-old son. She said, "Let the people see what I've seen." The reason the world saw what she saw was because of another hero in this story, the black press. Jet Magazine, the Chicago Defender, and other black radio and newspapers were unflinching and brave in making sure America saw what she saw. Ida B. Wells once said, and I quote, "The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon the wrongs."
Turning the light of truth upon the wrongs. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
Life is uncertain. It's okay to feel stressed, anxious, worried, or frustrated. It's normal. With CalHope's free and secure mental health resources, it's easy to get the help you and your loved ones need when you need it the most. Call our warm line at 833-317-4673 or live chat at calhope.org today.
The Black Hollywood Education and Resource Center's 30th annual Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves short film showcase, May 19th through the 21st at the Directors Guild of America opening night celebration hosted by actress Wendy Raquel Robinson with special guest, director, actress, and choreographer Debbie Allen. Come out and celebrate emerging Black women filmmakers. See dynamic films, hear great panels, careers in Hollywood, directors on directing, and more. Don't miss Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves Short Film Showcase, May 19th through the 21st. For more information, go to bherc.org or call 323-957-4656. 323-957-4656.
KBLA Talk 1580 is in the lab right now, prepping some new shows coming your way soon. More empowerment, more inspiration, more entertainment.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Jazz Urbane Hour. I'm your host, Bill Banfield. We are a curated musical show that highlights contemporary cultural issues and artistry, showcasing music as a relevant and necessary arm of contemporary cultural identity.
You must learn. Welcome. I am your host, Dr. Tyrone Howard on KBLA Talk 1580, and you're listening to You Must Learn, where we talk about education as a tool for transformation. Education in our homes, in our schools, and in our communities. Education for transformation is the tagline, and we are here to talk about why we must learn.
KBLA Talk 1580 is for discerning listeners just like you. So tell all your friends you've discovered the talk station curating smart content for smart people. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got you black. Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
And today you're waking up with me and Dr. Melina Abdullah as we, I don't want to say celebrate because it feels really sad that Keenan Anderson would have been 32 today. It always kind of stuns me how certain people's passing, certain people's death at the hands of police violence strikes a nerve with people because it happens so much, right? You mentioned 8 people have been killed by LAPD alone this year. And then if you factor in Sheriff's Department, just LA, that's not counting San Francisco or the rest of the country, it's quite a lot. And so you wonder, why does a Michael Brown, why does a Keenan Anderson in this case, or George Floyd, whose death anniversary is coming up next week, why do they wake people up more than others, or why do they make people feel more than others?
Right. I think, I don't know why. I don't know. I remember when Trayvon Martin was killed, which actually sparked Black Lives Matter. He was the start of Black Lives Matter. When Trayvon Martin was killed, and we'd seen others killed by police and white supremacy before, there was something about Trayvon's face and his spirit. And I think, in a way, I don't quote Barack Obama very often, but when President Obama said, he said, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon, those words really resonated with me. And I was already in the streets, but it encapsulated what I was feeling because I have a son. And for me, every time I saw Trayvon's face, I saw my son's face. And there was something about his being and his energy that spoke straight to my soul. And I think that there are some who speak straight to our souls. And I also think that if we were to elevate each and every one of these folks, they would speak to our souls differently. I've been deeply involved, and I think you know, in the murder, getting justice in the name of Ronald Green, who was killed back in March of 2019 by Louisiana state troopers. And those state troopers now face criminal charges. This is the first time in the whole state of Louisiana that police have ever been charged in the killing of someone. Well, I think about how Ronald Green, who also had a really beautiful and loving family, and the more that I learn about him, the more that I see him, he speaks to my soul. but his story was buried. And I think that that's intentional when they bury these stories and assassinate the characters of the folks so that they don't speak to your soul. Because when these killings speak to your soul, you have no choice but to rise up. And so I think that's why Mike Brown, we were able, the community exposed what happened to Mike Brown. Oscar Grant, the community exposed what happened to Oscar Grant. And Keenan Anderson, the community exposed, and of course, because of who his cousin is, as co-founder of Black Lives Matter, we were able to feel him, not just understand, not just intellectually understand what happened, but allow our souls to move us forward.
The San Francisco District Attorney on yesterday released a surveillance video showing killing of someone they say was shoplifting at Walgreens by a security guard. Reminds me of something that happened here in Hollywood. They released that video because they said this would make people understand why she decided not to file any charges against that security guard. This is something that happened April 27th. The person is named Benko Brown. He was a 24-year-old unarmed person who was outside of Walgreens in downtown San Francisco. The Board of Supervisors passed a resolution urging the DA, this person, Brooke Jenkins, to release more information, and to the police department also to release more information. The DA is calling this self-defense, and the decision has been made not to charge Michael Earl Wayne Anthony, who did shoot this supposed shoplifter to death. And it seems like releasing the video hasn't really helped because they're still protesting. I think this is one of those situations where, you talk about the narrative and what is said to justify our killing. It reminds me a little bit of the situation on the train. Well, if the guy was yelling, then he deserved to die. If the guy was shoplifting, because supposedly there's a problem, a problem with brazen shoplifting, they call it in San Francisco. And of course, this is a security guard, not a cop, but I wonder if you have any thoughts on it.
Right. I think you're also pointing to almost a parallel murder that happened here inside of Walgreens.
Yeah.
In Hollywood, right? When we think about the murder of Sky Young, who was also accused of shoplifting, who was also a trans person, who was also struggling with housing instability, and they also dismissed the murder of Sky Young. And so I think that, again, it goes to character assassination, that they say that people are deserving of their own deaths. So Benko Brown is deserving of their own death, right? They say that Sky Young is deserving of their own death. They say that Jordan Neely is deserving of his own death, when really, and this points to not just the injustice of policing, but the injustice of the world. When you have a world that doesn't flood community with resources like mental health resources, like housing, that you actually create conditions that force people into certain situations. When we talk about Jordan Neely on the train, I think that we have to question ourselves as a society, not providing, what the murderer of Jordan Neely said is that he was, quote unquote, aggressively yelling about not having enough food or drink, aggressively yelling, right? So we have to talk about what that means, that we don't provide the world with enough to eat or drink, or enough to be housed, or to deal with the death of his mother, or we have to think about that. And we also have to think about how the world, not us, but so many, get on the side of the murderer. So what the San Francisco District Attorney, who is really just a terrible human being in my view, who tried to undo everything that her predecessor, Chesa Boudin, has done in terms of not prosecuting low-level crimes, in terms of recognizing the need for a district attorney to engage in racial justice work. She has been absolutely about prosecuting as many crimes of need as possible, not holding police accountable. She's I think, just the epitome of injustice. But I think that also what's happening is kind of a backlash to those who demand justice, where you see people like the murder of Jordan Neely launching GoFundMes that in just a matter of days accumulate millions of dollars. I think he's above $2 million now.
That's right.
In donations. And we don't see resources for the people who actually need it.
Yeah, the actual victims. Great points all. And I think, two things come up for me. Number one, I wish, and actually, I spoke with Congresswoman Maxine Waters about this on the air, and she thought, well, let's look into it. But I wish we could have a law that would stop them from character assassination after people are killed by police, like they did with Michael Brown, like they're doing with Keenan Anderson, like they do over and over again. And the other thing is the news reporting, because you're talking about aggressive yelling, but several news I've started to notice several news organizations now saying threats, but that was never reported before. So I feel like there is a changing of the narrative that happens to justify the killing, and the media is often complicit in that. And I think the only way we can get accountability from the media is if we, the consumers, become more sophisticated in calling out those talking points. What threats? Prove there were threats. First, it was just that he was yelling for food and water. Now you're saying he was making threats. Prove it or don't say it. Prove it or don't say it. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Director of Programming and General Manager Asantewaa Olatunji named Los Angeles Cultural Affairs Commissioner by Mayor Karen Bass. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News. She's an attorney and an arts advocate excited about serving in the development of the cultural landscape in LA County. Olatunji is the co-founder of the Pan-African Film Festival, also known as PAF. She began her career as an entertainment lawyer on staff with Paramount Pictures. Her legal career was diverse, and she was on general counsel for the LA Black Employees Association, amongst many other affiliations. Her new role with the city will make her a member of the advisory board responsible for the review and approval of all architecture and artwork on or over city property. Congratulations. I'm Maisha Cairo, and this is KBLA Talk 1580.
Something new is happening in California's public schools.
They're called community schools.
One of the foundations of community schools is shared decision-making,
where parents and families, students and educators make decisions as one.
Community schools lift the voices of folks that have traditionally been underserved.
Many of our classes are designed around our own students' cultures, their background, their personal experiences.
We bring culturally relevant curriculum to the classroom based on what their specific needs are.
Improving student achievement and innovative classes like cybersecurity and gardening.
And we assist families with their needs.
Some schools have parent education programs, cooking and nutrition classes.
Everything from medical or dental services to immigration law services.
This is a one-stop shop that serves the needs of not just the students, but their families as well.
They're California's community schools, reimagining public education. Paid for by the California Teachers Association.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at J.P. Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, you know. Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and they're putting their money where their mouth is at. So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community, and you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase, and give them another look. If I go to another institution, I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right. Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
Find a righteous rage, and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Okay, so I don't want to, we've been talking, mostly talking about Keenan Anderson, because the young man he was a teacher. He was killed by LAPD right here, and he would have been 32 years old today. And we've touched on some other killings as well. I don't want to not do the solutions and the actions that are going on, because I think we can get real sad. And to me, it's important to get back to what are we doing about it. When we fight, we win. Of course, that's what your whole life is about with Black Lives Matter LA and BLM Grassroots. I know tomorrow is protest day. So what are the calls to action around Keenan and in general?
Yeah, and I thank you for that, Dominique. As I was going to bed last night, I thought about how blessed I feel to be able to live a purposeful life. And a lot of folks think that protest is heavy and that standing up for our folks is hard. And, sometimes it is, but also it gives us such a remembrance of our own power. So it's restorative. To yell back at the police is restorative. To cut a police budget and use those funds for the things that actually keep us safe, that's restorative. And so we need to engage in this work because it restores us. So what people can do is we know that the city is in the midst of its budget process. It's actually closing out its budget process this week.
Yeah.
And so we need to make sure that we tell the city of Los Angeles, look, the most minor thing they can do is just don't increase the budget of LAPD, right? What's being proposed is an $87 million increase to LAPD. Dr. David Turner did the math. If we took just the increase, we could pay for almost 3 months of housing for every unhoused person in the city, just the increase. So we need folks to make sure that they make their voices heard on Wednesday and Thursday at City Council. So City Council meets at 10 a.m. You can go in person, but you can also send an email. You can also give comments via link, and I'll share that on BLMLA's Twitter. We'll have all that information. So tell City Council, we want no new cop money. That $87 million savings could go to the things that actually make communities safe. And then, as Baba Keeley would say, every Wednesday, and I can't do it like him, but every Wednesday, including this Wednesday, we'll be out front of the ACLU building chanting down the LA Police Protective League, and it sits right across the street. Last week, they actually attempted to intimidate us by bringing more cops out. Usually they just give us the street, but there were a lot of cops last week. So we need to make sure that we have a lot of people to remind them, as we did last week, that the people have the power. So that's Wednesday, 4 p.m. at 1313 West 8th Street. Wednesday, 4 p.m. at 1313 West 8th Street. So those are two of the things that can be done. And then, of course, plug into the work of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles or Black Lives Matter Grassroots, wherever you are. So we're BLMLA on Twitter, BLM Los Angeles on Instagram, and then for our global work is BLM Grassroots. And I hope everybody gets ready to celebrate 10 years of Black Lives Matter, where we'll be having a huge celebration on July 15th in Africatown, what some people call Lamert Park.
All righty. Dr. Melina Abdullah is my guest, and you're welcome in. You know where you are. You're at KBLA, Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Come join us for a celebration of community, culture, and healing at the I Love Myself Festival, Sunday, May 21st from 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. at the Outdoor Pavilion of the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall. Yoga, meditation, food, vendors, a kids zone, and a special panelist segment featuring Samantha Smith, D Smoke, and Ebony Davis. Performances by Wilson, Skylar Ray, Divas of Compton, Iman Europe, Kalan For Real, and Eric Bellinger. It's all going down Sunday, May 21st at the Outdoor Pavilion of the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Let's come together for a day of fun, celebration, and healing. For more details, contact Project Pit on social media or text 323-448-5770. The I Love Myself Festival in celebration of Mental Health Awareness Month is a free event for community healing and culture. May 21st from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall.
Big tobacco cigarette butts filter practically nothing and are made of microplastics that are toxic and cunning. More than 15,000 fibers lurk in every cigarette butt you see. Could they harm your families? Quite possibly. They could end up inside of you, your bodies, their prey. New studies even indicate possible links to mutations in DNA. An evil lie with a future's worth of harm. To the world, now you know, so sound the alarm. Learn more at undo.org.
Have you faced discrimination in Los Angeles? The City of LA Civil Rights Department can help. They investigate private sector discrimination in LA City in commerce, education, employment, and housing. If you're facing discrimination, submit a complaint online for free at laisforeveryone.com. That's laisforeveryone.com or call 213-978-1845.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Dr. Melina Abdullah is with me, and I'll be joined next hour, at least the first half of the hour, by Republican commentator who seems to have a lot to say about the Vice President of the United States. His name is Horace Cooper. And then the final hour, Kenya K. Stevens from Seeking Brother Husband will be on. Got a lot going on around here today, Dr. Abdullah. I don't want you to leave without at least mentioning, this is not a drill, Saturday mornings. What do you got going on this week?
Yeah, well, Friday is the birthday of our beloved, always minister, inspiration, Minister Malcolm X. And so on Saturday, we'll be uplifting his life. We'll be talking with some scholars and activists who organize and write in his name. So Dr. Michael Sawyer will be joining, along with co-founder of the Malcolm X grassroots movement. We call him Baba AK, but Akinyele Umoja will be joining, and we'll be talking about Minister Malcolm X on Saturday. And of course, as always, encouraging folks to call in and offer their own Malcolm stories to the conversation. Malcolm, may Minister Malcolm, the Honorable Malcolm, continue to serve as a guide for us as we contemplate what to do with our lives. Our lives are owed to our people and owed to our Creator. So let's do the work.
Absolutely. And, you know, some people might not know that Black Lives Matter Los Angeles has a weekly newsletter. So if you want to get up on game and know what's going on, how do they subscribe to the newsletter?
blmla.org, blmla.org, and you can just put in your own email address and you'll start getting those weekly emails that tell about all of our actions and work that's moving, as well as give you kind of a curated list of articles to read so that you can stay plugged into the work, into what's moving in the world. And so please subscribe there, and again, follow our social medias because there's stuff that pops up in the middle of the week as well.
And that's free, by the way, right? blmla.org. The newsletter is going to come to you for free.
Everything. Absolutely. So we look to build in community with folks.
You know how we do, Dr. Abdullah. You got a minute. What you want to say?
So we want to say especially today, especially as we come off of Mother's Day, especially as it's Keenan Anderson's 32nd birthday, do something. Do something to honor your mama, to honor all of our spiritual mothers, to honor our Creator, to honor our ancestors, to honor the name of Keenan Anderson. Pledge to do work in their honor. We want to say their names, and we also want to do the work. So please call in to the city council meeting tomorrow. Please show up in the streets tomorrow. Please, even if all you do is tweet out, "I remember Keenan Anderson," it all means something.
Dr. Melina Abdullah, thank you so much, and thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you so much.
That's a Talking Point Tuesday. Get ready for some of those conservative talking points. In fact, possibly a monsoon of them next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Former President Trump is expressing validation after a report says the FBI never should have launched the Trump-Russia probe.